Hello everybody, welcome to TryHard News. Let me introduce you to a brief description of the show. So in this show, I will be delivering Philippines news to you from 3 days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I'll be gathering news and deliver the news to you on Thursday. And for the news for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I'll be delivering the news to you on Sunday. Now, the news will include mostly Philippines news, latest issues, along with my commentary on the issues. It will also include some larger international events and some specific news stories that I myself find interesting. So that's how we're going to do the show.
TryHard News.
For Monday, the first story is probably the most important story for everybody here. It's the Dial 911 story. So recently, the government has implemented a new emergency number, and that emergency number is now 911. So gone are the days where you're not too sure what numbers to call, because 911 is quite prevalent in most pop culture media. It's used in most Western media, which most Filipinos do consume. Now, this story has both good and bad news. Let's start with the good news. So the good news about this story is that actually it came off as a success. 911 was launched perfectly along with its citizen complaint hotline at 888. So this means you'll be able to ask for emergency services simply by calling 911. You can also file citizen complaints by dialing 8888. So, however, there's a bad side to this story. Now, as soon as it was released, like some assholes, people started doing prank calls, and unfortunately, the statistic is, it says here, only 3% of all the 911 calls were actually legit calls. All the other calls were prank calls or drop calls. Obviously, that's a problem, but don't worry, these prank callers will be arrested. You can be found, you can be traced, and you can be arrested for making a prank call. You see, my personal opinion on this is, by making a prank call, you actually put a lot of people's lives in danger. That's another call that might not have gone through, somebody that might have really needed it, and you're just congesting the lines, of which could be used by people who actually need it. So it's really a terrible thing to do, to prank call these emergency lines when people may really desperately need that line. So the main takeaway is, don't be an asshole. Don't prank call these lines. It's terrible. Okay, we'll move on to the next story. Have you ever had the problem where you go to the store, you try to buy something, and they have no change? Well, this is good news for you, because here comes the exact change bill, or the No Shortchanging Act. What it says is businesses must always have change to give the customer, and it is not legal to withhold change or offer smaller goods in place of change. Violators may find themselves with a fine of 5,000 pesos to 25,000 pesos based on repeat offenses. What I can say about this is that is good. That is good. Too many a time have I not been given the proper change, or have been given candies instead of my change, and I think the customers do deserve their change back. They're paying, working hard for their money, and should be given their full money's worth when buying something. Which reminds me of a story my mother told me of my grandmother. You see, stores back in the day, if they don't have change, they would give you little candies. If you don't have a peso, they'll give you 3 candies or something along those lines. So what my grandmother did is she would collect every candy that the store would give her, and until the time that she had enough tiny candies to be able to purchase one whole item in the store. So she marched her ass all the way to the store, presented them, she grabbed an item worth the amount of candies she was holding, and bought the item with the candies, and the store clerks couldn't do anything because clearly they've been giving her candies and she clearly had enough of it. Okay, so let's move on to Tuesday. So the first story for Tuesday is, I think most of you might recall, NAIA janitors are all losing their job. This is thanks to the contractualization, or what is better known as ENDO. Now here, this story says that the NAIA janitors will actually be able to keep their job. These janitors have been working in this airport facility for roughly 10 years of their lives. So they would have lost their jobs due to ENDO. If you're not familiar with ENDO, this is when people are contractualized to only work for 5 months. Because they only work for 5 months, they do not get the benefits and securities that most regular employees get. And because of that loophole, they don't get to be regular employees because they are fired after 5 months. So Now these employees are actually going to be given benefits. For this next story, there will be a Republic Act 10916, or a Republic Act focused on the installation of speed limiters in PUVs, or public utility vehicles. Now, this is done by placing an air and fuel choke in the engines to limit how much fuel and air you can put in the engine, therefore limiting the speed of the machine. Now, this is actually great because it forces drivers to drive at a certain pace. Nobody can overtake each other crazily. Nobody can go for these crazy joyrides we see in Metro Manila often. So this is actually makes it much safer for all the commuters here. And in my opinion, this law will normalize the pace of most public utility jeepney drivers or public utility vehicle drivers. This pace removes the pressure on these drivers to increase their speed, putting people's lives in danger so that they can get a better profit in the end of the day. Since this normalizes it, everybody can stay at a normal competitive point and not have to force themselves to go faster and take on more risk for more reward. So the mayor of Leyte has indeed surrendered, but his son is still at large. They are still trying to look for him. The son is actually the largest drug lord in Eastern Visayas, believed to be under the protection of his father. This father, of course, completely denies all allegations against him, claiming to be innocent. Although he has benefited from the wealth generated by his son, he himself has not participated in gathering that wealth. Anyway, we will see how that turns out. Personally, I think these drug pushers, they really need to be caught. They really truly do ruin people's lives. Families get torn apart, people die. It's terrible because these drug pushers are looking to make easy money. So the takeaway on this is these drug pushers, they have wormed their way into the government, and although I hate to admit it, I think that's one good thing about the Duterte presidency is he is actually doing an active effort to remove these types of people, to get rid of these worms in the government. It's the cancer of the Philippines, who are protecting themselves and engaging in these illegal activities. They're serving themselves more than the people. I really don't think that they deserve to be in the government. Okay, after this little break, allow me to talk to you about the shitstorm that is the Rio Olympics. Probably the biggest story here is a fire broke out in one of the larger buildings of the athletes village in the Rio Olympics. It broke out in the basement, and the Australian team that was being evacuated was actually robbed during the evacuation. Now, the problem here is not only should you as a proper functioning government not allow a fire to break out in a building, but I know accidents do happen, you also don't allow the criminals to steal important items from actual Olympian athletes. You think that's the worst part of the story, but actually it does get worse. The people who actually stole these items are actually fire marshals themselves. The Olympians claim to have seen fire marshals walking out with their Zika or their anti-Zika shirts. These team shirts that were meant to protect them from the rampant Zika virus mosquitoes around that area. If you guys don't know what Zika virus mosquito is it's a disease that is communicable by mosquito bites, rampant in certain areas, and unfortunately Rio de Janeiro is one of them. So those shirts were meant to protect them. Not only were those shirts stolen, but also a laptop was taken. I wish this is where the story ends, but unfortunately it does not. On top of shit-filled toilets that won't flush, clogged toilets, and terrible living conditions, one of the fire alarms in one of the Olympians' rooms actually was disabled, and the poor man actually slept through the whole evacuation process. This person didn't even know there was an evacuation going on. He didn't know there was a fire going on. This Olympian could have died in that building because some asshole disabled his fire alarm, or probably it didn't work. It doesn't matter. It's just shitty handling of this entire situation, and really the blame here goes to the Rio government, unable to provide a proper venue or provide a decent venue for these athletes. People could have died. People got their items stolen, shitty living conditions, clogged toilets. This has to be the worst conditions for any Olympics ever. It's just so terrible. And the takeaway from this is the Brazilian government really shouldn't bite off more than they can chew. If they are not able to provide what these athletes need, which is pretty much basic livable conditions, they should not accept such a large project like the Olympics. Going to the next story, we have the no tech. Oh, damn. Going to the next story, we have the no texting while driving law. So in this law, it's pretty straightforward. You can't text, you can't look at your phone, you can't receive calls, you can't be on Facebook while you're driving. I don't think we should have a law for this. It's pretty obvious you shouldn't be doing that and you shouldn't be distracted while driving. But unfortunately, that's a thing. So if you are caught texting, receiving a call while driving, the fine can go from 5,000 pesos up to 30,000 pesos with additional punishments like suspension up to revocation of driver's licenses. The good news is receiving hands-free calls is not a punishable offense. The problem here is I believe the lawmakers have to have a dialogue with these companies that require phone uptime to provide their service. The lawmakers must have a dialogue to certain stakeholders and companies that require phone uptime as a part of their business, like Uber or Grab Taxi. These companies require the drivers to use their phones in order to find passengers, show that they're available. So there has to be some degree of leeway with use of cell phones in the car. So one thing I personally I would probably add is maybe if the driver could pull over for a moment, he could use these phones, or if the display of the phone is right there close by you, where the driver needs nothing more than a glance to figure out what he needs to do, or a simple press of the button to be able to get the customer he needs, then that should be more or less allowed. Otherwise, that spells the death of those businesses. Going to the next story, for you perverts like me around there, this may be something to rejoice about. The site Pururin is actually back up and running. If you don't know what that site is about, I urge you not to look at it, but you're gonna look at it anyway, so have fun with that. Okay, coming on to news for this Wednesday, there is this church in Cebu City, a chapel in Sitio Laguna that has apparently some miracle water. Now, I would like to urge people not to drink or not to consume this miracle water because it has been tested and has been proven that it contains E-coli, which would lead to terrible things happening to your body if you drink that. So if you are there in Cebu City and you do have in your possession such water from the chapel of Sitio Laguna, I would advise you to not drink it. Use it in whatever way you wish. I respect that it's important to you, but please, if you wish to take care of your body, do not consume this water. It does in fact contain E. coli and you could get seriously hurt or killed consuming this. Off to the next story. This story is in link with Mayor Ronaldo Espinosa of Leyte, the one Duterte told to surrender, or it's a shoot to kill order. Now, 6 people were actually shot dead in an encounter outside of his house. These people were in possession of a number of high-powered firearms and a few pistols, 45 calibers. So a shootout happened as they entered these complexes looking for the mayor's son. Unfortunately, the son was not there. The shootout, however, did happen, leaving 6 people dead. Now, this is in relation to the drug accusations towards the father-son duo. Personally, I think I really urge the people to stay away from these drug personalities, stay away from working with drugs, stay away from using these drugs. It is really dangerous and you could really lose your life nowadays. Okay, on lighter news, the app Instagram has launched a new feature, Instagram Stories. Similar to that of Snapchat, the way it goes is you upload content, video, picture, slideshow, and it will disappear within a day. So, not much to say about this. I don't use Instagram or Snapchat, but I can certainly see some people who would make use of this new feature. It certainly promotes competition between the two, and competition is always healthy for consumers. Next story. Now, North Korea has actually launched a missile into the sea. Now, this is heightened tensions between North Korea and South Korea. Obviously, North Korea seems to be showing a little bit more muscle. I believe this is in response to the missile defense system that South Korea put. Either way, it is stressing out the entire Asian region. North Korea can be unpredictable, and South Korea is very, very weary of this. The types of missiles North Korea was sending could possibly hit South Korea and a number of other Asian countries. So people are very weary of this. North Korea was already not allowed by UN to conduct such launches, but of course, why would they listen? They don't give a fuck about anything. They just care about starving their people and shit. I'm kidding. It's just the asshole leaders, really. But anyway, this causes for not much alarm for the Philippines, but it is something to be weary about. But I am certain South Korea can handle itself in a situation where North Korea begins to get aggressive. Looks like the end. This video should go up on Thursday. So just to reiterate, I'm doing this show collecting news from Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, posting it on Thursday. The next news will be Thursday, Friday, and Saturday to be posted on Sunday. So my next upload should be on Sunday. If you are not a fan of Philippine news, you can check out the other stuff on my channel. I have Try Something New series and a couple of tutorials that will pop up here and then. Feel free to watch those. And I want to hear your comments. Tell me what news story you would like me to cover. If I hear from you soon enough, I should be able to include it in the next video. So have a good evening, everybody. Goodbye.